Hello, everyone. This is Christina Barr from Black Tea News. Thank you 100% FedUp for letting me also stream on your guys' page while I also stream this on my Facebook page for Black Tea News and also on YouTube. Today, I want to talk about some comments that Obama made. He's been in the news a lot recently, obviously because of the election, but also because they are. Um, he's writing a memoir, so he's out there trying to promote his 700-page monstrosity. Um, so one of the things that he said today was particularly troubling. And while Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are like, oh, let's do some unity, at the same time, right now, there's other people who are also trying to divide. And it's funny when people win after they've berated you so much, they want to come back and say, well, now is the time for all of us to get together. And it's like, I didn't forget that you called me a racist like 2 seconds ago. Like that didn't escape my memory. so, I want to talk about something that Obama said, kind of an excuse for why he believes Trump did so well and why he was able to get so much of the Hispanic population. And it's just really a bigoted thing that the former president said. But he's always been a divisive figure, and I know Obama tries to paint history, rewrite history, and so do a lot of the people who support him. But that's just not going to fly. But really quickly, if you do like what I do, please visit blacktnews.com and you can look at other articles and stuff that I've written, other videos that I've done, and also look at some of the merch that we have. And please consider a donation and supporting what we do, so we can expand it, get some more people on board, and do some more traveling and pump out more stories. I think if we know anything with this election, we know that information is a weapon. Information is a weapon, and we saw the social media sites being really big guardians of information, and how uh, New York Times and all these other people just blatantly lied like all the time, and they use stories to really go after the president. They said a lot of things that weren't true. They weaponized fact checkers, and like something that Joe Biden might have said that might have been a lie, they would say, well, maybe it's misleading or half true. It's a mixture. And with Trump, if he said something was true, they might say it's a mixture instead of saying he was right. And with Joe Biden, it really, really biased how they use different things, and they would manipulate people in real time. And like people still believe that the fine people thing is a hoax. People believe that the president said to drink bleach and all this other stuff. So anyway, information is a weapon, and how they've used race has really been a weapon for some time, but it was really, really used to the max with this election. And we want to make sure that nothing like that can happen again. But it's going to take some work. It's going to take elevating some new different voices and elevating them above some of the mainstream media that we have, because we know that they're blatantly, on the Democrat side. They're just basically another side of the Democrat Party right now. So it's really important that we really find a way to get around them. So if you could check out Black Tea News, and if you would like to support, I would really appreciate that. So first and foremost, I'm going to go ahead and play this clip. Obama talking to the Breakfast Club today, this just happened today, about why he believed the president was able to get Hispanic support.
People were surprised about a lot of Hispanic folks who voted for Trump. But there's a lot of evangelical Hispanics who, the fact that Trump says racist things about Mexicans or puts detainees, undocumented workers in cages, they think that's less important than the fact that, he supports their views on, gay marriage or abortion.
Yeah. So there's a lot of wrong things to unpack there. I don't know if a lot of you are seeing this for the first time, or if you guys saw it trending on Twitter, but first of all, I guess first response would be gay marriage wasn't even a big topic. It wasn't a big issue. I went to some of the evangelical for Trump events that the campaign sent surrogates to, but I don't know if they're necessarily campaign events, but I mean, it was blatantly for the president and stuff. So of course, it's still like the Christian position for the marriage, how the Bible dictates marriage should be. But I don't even remember it being a big conversation there. They talked mostly about like religious liberty. They talked about some things that the administration was doing. They were talking about how they put people in different positions all over the executive branch to um, help protect religious liberty at every level of the executive office. So, people in the Justice Department, people in HUD, people in uh, uh, the Department of Education. So everywhere they had people somewhere looking out for religious liberty, and they also had people who would pray with those people. So there was like people looking out for policy, but also people looking out for I guess suppose from a spiritual aspect, if you're like a spiritual kind of person, believe in the power of prayer. They had they talked about how the administration was taking money, was paying farmers to make sure, because there's all this surplus with the restaurants that were shut down during the coronavirus crisis, and so they were buying food from farmers and giving out food to people, to Americans. So they were also talking about not just religious liberty stuff, but also things that people would do kind of that Christians also believe in, like feeding the poor and all this other stuff. So that was really the focus, and they were telling some stories that were kind of like some softer sides to the president, and I really enjoyed those meetings. But it was not a hey, let's bash the homosexuals. It wasn't anything like that, even at specific Christian events. And if you will recall, President Trump, as soon as he got elected, he had an interview. Maybe it was with ABC. I can't quite remember, but they asked him about the Supreme Court, and he said, he believed it was kind of a settled issue, and he's not like 100% with everybody on the right as far as that, but that was his position. It's not like a big deal to him. So for Obama to say and act and pretend like he was out there stomping against homosexuality, and that's what really jived with Christians and Hispanic voters, and that's why they turned out and decided to support the president, it was just absolutely just not accurate. And to go on, he also so that's one thing. And just to understand, like Pew Research did a study. This came out in August, and gay marriage isn't like even a top 10 issue. I mean, people won't care about the economy, healthcare, Supreme Court appointments, coronavirus outbreak, violent crime, foreign policy, gun policy, race and ethnic inequality, immigration, economic inequality, climate change, and abortion. So those rated pretty high. And specifically for Hispanics, this came out in September. The economy, healthcare, coronavirus, racial inequality, violent crime, Supreme Court appointments, climate change, immigration, gun policy, economic inequality, foreign policy, abortion. So a lot of things that Hispanics specifically cared about are things that everyone in the country cares about. And so that's one thing that the left does. They try to like take a particular issue and say, if you don't agree with this, then you're just against it. Like, for example, like if you don't believe in abortion, you're somehow anti-women. Like Taylor Swift had the audacity to say like Marsha Blackburn isn't for women, and crying hysterically on her little documentary or whatever, upset, saying that she doesn't care about women's issues. Like, when women care about foreign policy, they care about violent crime, they care about the economy, they care about things that are going to impact their families. They don't just sit around thinking all day like, oh, I want to make sure that I can have an abortion if I want to, or if my daughter wants to have an abortion one day, that she has the option. People just don't do that. They just don't do that unless you're like really radical for the position. Most people, I believe, who are probably for abortion are just kind of doing it out of they're kind of reluctant, kind of like Dave Rubin will say he's reluctantly pro-choice, and I just think is that last step of they don't want to totally, because sometimes there are people are in a really bad spot and they don't want to go the extra mile and say, no, I don't believe you should do this. So I think there's still a lot of hesitancy with a majority of Americans on the issue, but you do have people like who are like, shout your abortion, do want to totally remove the stigma and so on, but that's not everybody. And so, but minorities care about the same issues that everyone else in America cares about. And so when they try to limit people and put them in a box, they really lose out on a lot of issues and lose a lot of opportunities. And so he said there's a lot of evangelical Hispanics who the fact that Trump says racist things about Mexicans or puts undocumented workers in cages, they think that's less important than the fact that he supports their views on gay marriage and abortion. So abortion is a really important issue, particularly about for Christians, and that's not going to change anytime soon, I hope. But you don't have to be a Christian to be against abortion. Um, I know quite a few atheists who are against abortion and who are conservative, and you can just kind of go by fetal development and have an opinion that uh, life that begins at conception is just kind of the more consistent scientific point, rather than believing when they exit the birth canal that somehow it is a person who deserves personhood and wasn't alive 5 seconds before. That just doesn't. If you believe the science, believe the science. And so that is a single issue for a lot of people, but that doesn't mean there aren't other issues and other reasons. The obvious explanation, especially when you in like Florida, where a lot of Hispanics did come out for support of the president. Obviously, there's a lot of Cubans out there, and they don't like the regimes that their families had to flee from. And people can recall that Obama and Biden were a bit friendly to those people. I remember when Castro died, Obama put out a statement, and his people would say it was presidential. Other people like Marco Rubio was like, your statement didn't mention how they killed and brutalized people. And so there are feelings. There are strong feelings that people have. And then Obama himself, well, first of all, Joe Biden, people aren't necessarily afraid that he is a socialist. People are afraid that the people around him or the people who pushed him, that he can be moved. And as a matter of fact, the co-founder of Black Lives Matter was on CNN doing an interview saying that she believed their goal was to get rid of Trump and to move Joe Biden to their to what they believed. So that was their goal, to get rid of Trump because they knew they couldn't push him, and to compromise with Joe Biden because they believe that they can push him. And also, this same woman also said that her and other co-founder were trained Marxists. And so there's people in Biden's circle who or activists or just Twitter, because he changed his longstanding position on the Hyde Amendment because Twitter basically got outraged, because at first he was like, no, this is a longstanding belief. He's Catholic, so on. And so then Twitter like outraged for like a day. And the next thing you know, Biden's like, you know what, I changed my position. And then he pretended, like on the debate stage when Bernie Sanders confronted him, he said, well, everybody had to vote for it because it was locked up in other bills. So it went from, this is my strong belief because I'm Catholic, and while I believe in a woman's right to choose and it should be safe, legal, and rare, I don't want to burden the Americans with having to take our taxpayer dollars and to pay for something they feel overall something so unethical. It went from like that position to yeah, I totally think we should pay for abortions, and you should pay for abortions, and the only reason why I didn't do this in the past is because I got strong armed, basically. So and that was just with some Twitter outrage. And then if you look at some of the people that he had worked through his campaign, it just gives you the impression that he can be moved. And if you look at his vice president, Kamala Harris, she's voted the most liberal person. She supported very liberal, leftist, socialistic kind of things like Medicare for all and Green New Deal. That was their job killing, government overreach kind of bills. And if you recall, Kamala Harris said that she would take executive action on guns, and within the first 100 days. And so when she had a debate and they talked to Joe Biden about it, he was like, some things you can do with executive action, but some things you can't. And so he didn't believe that you can take executive action. And so she laughed at him. and said, instead of saying, we can't, how about saying, we can? And so she just laughed at him for believing that, no, we should do this through the legislative body. We can't just do an executive order. And she laughed at him. And this is the person that he decided should be his VP. Should be his VP. This person who barely got like 2% in the primary, tried to drop out before the California primary so she wouldn't be embarrassed. Barely got any traction. So unlikable. And he rewarded her, which he believed he had to pick someone of color because he made so many racist comments during the campaign. And believe he was Obama was on the Breakfast Club. It was Charlemagne and some other people wrote a letter saying, hey, Biden, you need to pick a black person to be your VP. And he already said he was going to pick a woman. And there were other choices he could have picked, but he chose Kamala, someone who is pretty far to the left, very cynical. Probably the person I like the least in all of politics right now, to be honest. So but that's who he chose. And if you recall, I mean, he was Obama's running, his VP. Obama had some tendencies that scared people too. And he said he was in an interview that's recorded from 1998 saying that he believed in redistribution of wealth. And if you recall, he talked to, when he got in that tiff with Joe the plumber, which their conversation wasn't really a tiff, but it caused like national spotlight conversations. When Joe the plumber said, hey, I'm about to, buy this company. I'm about to move into basically an upper income bracket and you're about to tax me more. And Obama's thing was, well, hey, just remember when you made less and how you felt then. Wouldn't you want more money then? And of course, you always want more money. That's the point. You don't want to make less money just when you started making more money. So it was a thing of people believing that Obama wanted to punish success. And Trump couldn't have come without Obama there being first. It was, and even though Obama has retained like his status and like popularity, like you could see his effect across the country as people started losing, seat governorships and House seats, and we took the House and we took the Senate and all this other stuff. And he, went and he stomped for Hillary Clinton, and he was saying, if you don't elect her, I'll consider it an insult to my legacy. And as soon as she lost, I said, I hope you got the message. Like I said that publicly about Obama. Like, I hope you got the message. He had a negative effect, and it's really odd because he still is like the person that they love so much. And another thing that Obama said, he said that remarked that in Republican politics, there's a sense that white males are victims, and there is definitely that sense. But when you start making all these like oppression Olympics stuff, and there has to be like a villain of like why people are oppressed and all this other stuff, and who built the system and all this stuff. So I mean, when you paint all these people as the villains of your story who weren't around when a lot of stuff went down, the things that you complain about, it's like, how do you expect certain people to feel? Now, I do know there are some people who are just like too into it, who they see something and they're just like gung-ho about believing like in the victimhood too much. I'm just like, or they're being attacked too much, I suppose. And it's like, it's not really that serious. But in general, if you say like toxic masculinity, who do you think you're attacking? Men are masculine. And then they say like such stupid things they pick on, like men like having their legs open when they're on a subway. Like they pick the dumbest things to be mad about, like someone asking you to smile. Just like we invent reasons to be victims. And so I do agree that people do feel that way, but they are, when you go after them, how are they supposed to feel? So, and the Democrats just make everybody a victim who they think is going to probably vote for them. So Democrats really create a victim culture themselves. So Obama. He's a slick liar. I mean, he's someone who just lies, and the media really has given him a lot of slack for a lot of his lies. But I'm working on a video right now about because and some people, I remember when Trump was like, I think it was the day he was inaugurated, and maybe it was like an hour or two afterwards or something, and I said something about Obama, and someone was like, got so mad and said, take his name out your mouth, he's not even the president anymore. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, you guys talked about Bush for like 8 years and I can't talk about Obama, and he's been the president for only not 2 hours. So people are very protective of him, and they allow him to rewrite history a lot. And so I'm and there are people who believe that Obama had no scandals in his administration. And the person who started that rumor, which this may be a shock, is Obama. Because at the time when he was president, the media did acknowledge when there were scandals. Now, they didn't believe that every scandal or everything that Republicans talked about was a big scandal, like Benghazi was a huge thing for Republicans, but some of the media was like, is it or I don't know, they try to downplay it, but I think they try to downplay it a lot because, well, obviously Hillary Clinton was being set up to be the next, person to run, and also Obama, it happened, before, in the year that he was being, reelected. So they tried to not have it be harped on so much. But the puzzling thing about Benghazi is like, why did they lie about that video for so long being like the motivation? That's still like puzzling. I guess maybe the administration didn't want people to feel like they couldn't handle terror, and so they didn't want a big I don't know, like a terror thing, because they say that because they weren't looking at the security or beefing up stuff in that regard, and they just decided to blame it on a video instead of just or justifying them. I don't know. It's just really bizarre why they would create this big lie. And they even lied about it at the funerals of the dead Americans for the Ambassador Stevens and then the soldiers. And Hillary Clinton implied that the Gold Star families misremembered or were lying, and which really upset them when we talk about attacking Gold Star families. They did that first. And it was just really bizarre. They could have just came out and told the truth. They didn't have to make it this really huge thing. So the lie about the story was really, I suppose, the big thing. And so that was a big scandal at the time, but the media wasn't into it as much as like Republicans were. But one thing they were into was how they were spying on Obama would spy on reporters, and they spied a lot on like AP specifically, that they were looking at their like personal information and all this other stuff. And there was one Fox News reporter that they were like following and listed, I believe, as a criminal because he was that he broke a story, and he was protecting his source, so they were kind of stalking him a bit. And so that particular story, the media, of course, acknowledged was a scandal. And even the Young Turks, as I was watching like videos, were talking about it, and they're like, out of all the scandals, we agree this is the real scandal, right? And everyone said, yeah. But there was also the IRS scandal, and there was also Fast and Furious, and I believe Obamagate is also a very big scandal. How they lied about Obamacare was a big scandal, but of course, Obama, you couldn't, Obama wasn't keeping his. Well, people who didn't like Obama assumed he was lying about the you can keep your doctor, you can keep your health insurance, but people didn't find that out till they lost their health care and lost their doctors. But the big thing about that happened later on, besides like political fact giving it like the Lie of the Year award, was that the architect of Obamacare came out and said that basically they couldn't have passed the bill if people actually knew it was in it, and that they benefited from the stupidity of the American voter. And so the fact is that they pulled a fast one over on the American people, and they knew it, and they knew that was the only way that they could get it passed. So so that was a big scandal too. That's a big scandal too, in my opinion. So Obama went around saying that he's had the cleanest administration. He never had any kind of scandals, which was just, absolutely not true. But so there are people who still who adopted this lie. I'll see people in my feed sometime and I'll correct them and they'll never mention it. They'll never acknowledge anything that I said that's like evidence. They just want to go on believing this silly little lie that Obama said. And we know Obama lied about Trump when he was at the DNC convention. He said a bunch of crazy things like Trump has no interest in putting the work in. He has no interest in finding a common ground. He said he had no interest of using his power for anyone else but himself. And he talked about how he's was just interested in being a reality star president. Which, when I listened to that, I was like, how can someone just stand there and lie so blatantly about all of this stuff? Trump did the VA reform. They did the tax cuts. They got all those judges passed. What, this number up to 300 now? They got the 3 Supreme Court justices, and he stood by. And the Democrats obstructed so crazily, especially with Brett Kavanaugh, came out with all those crazy allegations, and Trump stood by him. He did the First Step Act, which Van Jones was like, this is historic, and worked on with them for it and all this other stuff. And then he's crying on the news after Joe Biden won, which is just like, dude, just chill out. Then they renegotiated the NAFTA, which is something Obama and Biden said that they were going to do, but they didn't do. And then Trump went ahead and did that and renegotiated something that was better than NAFTA. So to say that he didn't put the work in and he didn't do stuff and they didn't get stuff done, that was just a big lie. That he didn't use his power of office for other people. I mean, they brought people who were imprisoned in other countries home. He pardoned people. He twisted people's arms to be able to do the First Step Act, Republicans and Democrats, to get that done. So that just wasn't true. And then as far as being his own, using the office like his own reality TV show, Obama, he went on Jimmy Fallon, he went on Jimmy Kimmel, he did the mean tweets thing, he did he went on Running Wild with Bear Grylls. And when that happened, I said, okay, either this show is not that impressive or this is really dangerous and our president shouldn't be doing it. So I'm like, this show can't be that authentic then if he's going on there. Obama really liked being famous and elitist, and so a lot of things he was saying about Trump were just things that so heavily applied to himself. And another comment, back to this Hispanic comment about the people in cages. How bold can you be to even mention that as if you didn't build those cages? As if, I mean, Joe Biden is probably one of the most lionist people I've ever seen run for office, and the way the media just covered for him was insane. But for Obama to get up and be like, well, Trump, he put people in those cages. But he described it as, let me go back and just make sure I get that correct. Put undocumented workers in cages. So that was an interesting thing to say. But just a reminder, when the news broke and the stories broke about these kids in cages and they started spreading these pictures all over the internet, someone finally pointed out, hey, these are pre-Trump era. And then people kind of calmed down a little bit, but about those pictures so much, but the story still spread, and it was such a contentious time for the Trump administration, which is crazy to me. After the final debate, when people were talking about coyotes, and you had elected officials and big like leftists just who didn't know what coyotes were, and there's a lot of people who don't know what coyotes were. So I don't want to disparage like everyone who doesn't know, but if you like make policy decisions, or if you were so heavily invested in that story, in that situation on the border, but you didn't even know that what coyotes are, it's good to be compassionate, but it can kind of be a bit dangerous if you don't have any information, because then you can be easily manipulated. So for people not to know anything about coyotes, like people who were elected by like by voters and to for office, saying, and to be so arrogant, like, there, I forget what state she was from. Maybe it was from Georgia. I don't don't maybe it was from Alabama. I don't exactly remember, but I put it in my feed on my timeline. Every one that I found came across about not knowing the coyote thing. And she was like, how can coyotes bring people across the border? We talking about a whole human child. And so they literally thought Trump was talking about an animal bringing people across the border. I'm like, how could you type that with such confidence? And people retweeted it and a bunch of times. And from what I saw, she never like deleted it, which I mean, it got screenshots. So I guess I don't know the point of deleting it, but so all these people were so engaged in the conversation, but don't know that coyotes will bring children across the border. And so some of those people arriving weren't actually arriving with their parents. And that's one of the reasons why there's like 500 kids where you don't know how to reunite them. And it's not just a matter of they haven't tried. Some people think they haven't tried. But it's not as easy as a situation as you believe. But it was bold for Obama to mention that. And if he just means that, since he said undocumented workers in cages instead of kids in cages, um, Obama and them deported a lot of people. So I don't know where he's getting off with that, but just um he projects really a lot. And so I also want to point out that Obama and like he's a very divisive figure. And I talked on 100% Fed Up page last time. I talked about how um a lot of things that people believe about Trump are just based off of bad information, and then they just keep stacking their opinions off of these bad premises that they have about the president and the comments and stuff that he made. But the media manipulates people a lot in real time. And I have this tweet pulled up. I'm just going to go very quickly into this example. Um, okay, so uh, when the president did a interview with Woodward, he asked a question about um, if Trump was like in a cave, basically isolated because he lived such a life of privilege, that are you kind of isolated from how people have different struggles day to day? And he said, for example, like black women or black people, and Trump was like, what are you kidding? Like, wow, you really drink the Kool-Aid. No, I don't feel that way. So the Hill went ahead and retweeted that video. Well, not the video, I think the audio, and they did a story, and they read a headline on Twitter as Trump said he didn't have the responsibility to understand pain of black Americans. And he said, no, I don't feel that at all. And the no, I don't feel that at all is to the question, do you have a sense that you have privilege, the privilege has isolated you? So he wasn't saying, no, I don't feel that don't have to understand or care about black Americans, but they phrased it as, oh, Trump doesn't care about black people, instead of him saying, no, I think your question is dumb. Of course I can have empathy for other people just because I've lived a life of privilege. So that's an example of how the media manipulates people in real time. That's not Vox, that's the Hill that said that. So there's like a lot, there are a lot of examples like that, and I'm going to go through kind of a really big breakdown of how the media manipulated people in real time, but they really use race as a weapon. And which is so hilarious because the person who's been saying racist things on the campaign trail is Joe Biden. It's Joe Biden. And I'm going to play this example for you guys. And I'm sure you've heard it, but I just want to talk about it.
Yes, and by the way, what you all know, but most people don't know, unlike the African American community, with notable exceptions, the Latino community is an incredibly diverse community with incredibly different attitudes about different things.
Okay. So to unpack that, he said African Americans imply they don't have diverse thoughts. Now, if he was going to say where we all vote like in voting blocks or something, you can't really dispute that because that's normally true. Trump did get a bigger percentage this time around, and there were actually some black people who didn't Still didn't go out and vote for Biden, but are we a particular usually voting block? Yeah, but but he was talking about issues, like specifically issues, and we don't all think the same. And everybody from different groups have different opinions on different things. But the thing I really want to stress, though, is that he was talking to a group of Hispanic voters. And so he said, what, you all know and what other people don't know. So he's saying, we're both hip. We're hip to the secret. We know that African Americans, they don't have diverse thoughts. So not only is he saying something particularly racist about African Americans, he's alleging that the Hispanics are in on it and that Hispanics are aware of the fact that Black people don't have, not Black people, specifically African Americans, don't have diverse thoughts. And so I don't know, is this like a thing where you think that you have to be racist to appeal to certain minorities? So because that's what he did. he made that appeal in a really racist way, and I suppose maybe people like Joe think racism is a good icebreaker. And like, I understand if you're a comedian making such jokes, but because they're just, I suppose, jokes. But when you're but he let it like it's a big secret, like we all know this common fact. And that it didn't sound like a joke. It wasn't funny. It wasn't delivered like a joke. And then he did apologize for it. I'll give him, I guess, credit for that. But basically, his apology was a tweet that said something like, I in no way meant to do the thing that I just did. I mean, he didn't say it like that, but that's basically, I'm paraphrasing and mocking. And yeah, so Joe Biden was the one who went around saying really racist comments. And so when Obama says that Trump, that people could overlook racist and evil comments that Trump made because they look at abortion and gay marriage and other stuff, and like, well, I agree with him on these issues, so I can overlook those other things. There are personality flaws that people don't like about Trump, and there are things, his style, his abrasive nature, there are things that they don't like about him that they do look to the kind of the bigger picture. But there are a lot of things that people think about the president that just aren't true. Like and like I gave an example of how they spread that one story to build on the assumption that Donald Trump is a racist. And they've done that with remarks that he's made at rallies. Like one time he was talking about General Grant and how he had the victory over General Lee, and they took that conversation as, oh, Trump praises General Lee, and to spread this, hey, he's really for this guy who fought, for the South in the Civil War, for the Confederacy. And so like they do stuff like that. They would remember when he was having a conversation about MS-13 and called them animals, and the media was acting like he said something, was calling just Mexicans animals. And so that didn't go spread too far. But I don't know how many people see corrections when they make corrections like that. And it was always clear that he was talking about MS-13, but they like to spread misinformation because they know by the time they issue the correction that the damage mostly has already been done. So even like comments like bleep whole countries and stuff, which I will not disagree with you, that is totally offensive. But even that, something like that is still hearsay. And so you can weigh it whether you want or believe it's true or not, but something like that is still hearsay. But we have Biden on video saying lots of racist things during the campaign. And so Obama has said some really divisive things throughout the years, and Joe Biden has done and said some pretty divisive things throughout the years. But Obama just keeps trying to rewrite history. But specifically, I want to say that if Democrats don't start looking at issues that people actually care about, like, and I read them off to you, which was like in the top 10, like the economy, talking about jobs, talking about national security and foreign policy and all these things that Trump actually did really good on. and was bombarded because of how they changed the system, and with how we voted, and also just the media was, and social media was so blatantly against him, and worked. They did so many things to blatantly be for Biden, that they just went out their way, that was worse than anything they ever did for Hillary or Obama or anyone before him. It was just unprecedented nonsense, how they stomped for Biden. Um, but Hispanics care about other issues, and particularly they care about, socialism, and the stuff that they had to flee. And there are some Democrats who understood this, because when they had their big call, like with the House afterwards, they were talking about defund the police and all these other harmful messages that went out throughout the year, is how some people lost their races, or how some people almost lost their races, because the Democrats were expecting to sweep and pick up seats, and that just really didn't happen. And you had, like, in 2018, we had a lot of Republicans who lost seats in California, but it looks like they're building that back. And so Democrats still have a majority in the House, but they thought they were picking up quite a few seats, and that it just didn't happen because of a lot of the divisive and crazy language from the left that's happened all this time throughout the years, but specifically this past year, that frightened a lot of people. So like, they were talking about defund the police, and then they had to calm down that a bit, because they did some surveys, and guess what? Black people, we want the police. And like, my sister will have a conversation with people, and they're like, we should defund the police. And she's like, look, and they're like, they don't need all that money. She's like, I just want to make sure that when I call them, they will be there speedily. And they whatever money they need to have to make sure that they can come within a certain amount of minutes. That's how much money I want them to have, period. And it's just that simple. When there is trouble, we want to be able to call to make sure someone is there. And so when all this other data and polling that I guess Don Lemon or whoever saw, that they were crying about, like, Democrats need to say something and do something now, people realize we're not headed in a really good direction. And we know this because people, they pushed race really hard, and they pushed it maybe too hard in some regards, because you had New York Times, the 1619 Project, and defund the police, and all this other stuff. And all of a sudden, one day, Nicole Hannah-Jones like deleted her, and she's a person who said they were trying to redefine America's founding to 1619 instead of 1776. And 1619 is significant because that's when slave ships like landed in the U.S. And so they're trying to redefine America's founding in racism and slavery. And so she deleted all these tweets and stuff that she had in the past, and they kind of tried to say, no, that's not what we said. It's like you guys are on video, like, we screenshotted what you said. You can't just like change your mind now. And she also said Hispanics aren't not Hispanic, that Cuban Americans aren't actually an ethnic group, after like the exit polls came in and they saw how many Hispanics voted for Trump. She's like, well, we need to have a real conversation about how these people aren't actually minorities and aren't actually an ethnic group. So that's where they're going now. They're starting to say skin folk ain't kinfolk. My sister saw someone in her store that she was working at, and they had a shirt that said that. And so that's the route that they're trying to go kind of now, like, which they were before, but they're kind of being more loud and proud about, if you depart from my way of thinking, then you're just not one of us. You may look like one of us, but you're just not one of us. And so, I don't know, it seemed like that was more like of a in-house kind of argument before with minority groups, but now they're just like blatantly out there attacking one another if we can't have thoughtful conversations about policy. So I suppose that's all I want to say about this today with Obama. Please stay tuned to Black Teen News, because I am working on that video debunking about Obama having a scandal-free administration. That really is something that he concocted in his mind. And I suppose I only think it's worth doing because so many people want to believe the lie. And Obama's putting out his like monstrosity of a memoir, and so people need to know separate the real from the fake. He is trying to rewrite history a lot, and it's just not right. So I do want to say, please go to blackteennews.com. Make sure you like my page on Facebook, I guess as long as Facebook doesn't like kick us off or anything like that, and YouTube, and I also have a Twitter. And visit the website, look at some of the articles, and also look at some of the merchandise, like this neat um please leave a gift if you would not mind. If you would like to support, you can go ahead and donate to blacktnews.com. So I want to thank you guys for tuning in and listening, and also to 100% Fed Up for allowing me the chance to also stream this. Looking at going over some of these comments really quick. Yeah, people upset about Obama. A lot of stuff that he said. Yeah, I see you guys. Yeah, Obama is a he lies. He lies a lot, but he's a smooth talker, and people enjoy that. I don't know. I guess the air of elitism and arrogance that he has, and he also seemed and since he talked about evangelicals, I just want to say before I go, it just always seemed like he had it out for evangelicals, and like he like prayer breakfast. He never like missed an opportunity to kind of say, um they're this way, to kind of lecture us. I mean, he said the comment about people, clinging to their guns and their religion. you know the bitter clingers comment was a really big red flag. And he's, he did come out of a church he attended, but it was a Black liberation theology church. If you're not familiar with Black liberation theology, it's uh kind of like an angry religion for a lot of Black people, who, and instead of, I don't know, finding like liberty in God, it's like they find, I wouldn't say freedom, but I know, scapegoats and racism, I suppose. It's just not. It's just a really weird doctrine of anger. And I had a podcast. I had a good friend on who grew up in a church, who was into Black liberation theology, and she hated it because it made her feel like they were teaching her to hate her, her friend who was white. So she didn't stay. They didn't stay there for super long, but she has a doctorate in theology now, so we had a good conversation about it. But if people want to real understand just a bit of Obama and why he was so divisive, because people say they talk about point. If you say like America wasn't divided, or there wasn't racism or anything like that before Obama, then you're a silly person. But there was a lot of division after, I mean, during the Obama administration, and a lot of things that he said were divisive, and he was a divisive figure. Uh, but if you want to understand a little bit about that, look into that theology. So yeah, please visit blacktnews.com, and I thank you guys for hearing me talk about Obama and rant a little bit and get this off my chest. I was upset when I heard it. I'm sure a lot of you were, and we just have to keep breaking through, uh, the things that these people are saying, and spread the truth, because information is a weapon. And I know we tried. There was a lot of people who tried pretty hard, but we got our butts handed to us a bit with this election, as we can see. And there was a lot of shenanigans, we know, but we have to break through the mainstream media. And I thank you for joining me as I try to build this platform, because we need to spread the truth. All right. Thanks, guys.